on this episode of Clear the Air.
A woman asked me how old she was. It's a dangerous question. I looked at her and I says, I don't know whether to make you younger because of your beauty or older because of your wisdom. She says, you ought to be in politics. So then I ran for the legislature. And I decided, well, why complain? If you don't try to do something about it in life, whether it be health care, whether it be politics, why complain if you're not willing to do something?
I pulled into Burger King and I got a hamburger and some fries and a Coke. And less than 5 minutes later, everything was gone. Like my headache was gone. And I realized that I hadn't had a thing to eat or drink in 3 days. Welcome to Clear the Air podcast. I'm your host, Nate Jones, and I'm here with a special guest, Lloyd Selleniet. Selleniet. How you doing today?
I'm doing okay.
Just okay, not great?
Yeah, well, I've been out working in the garden this morning. I have a big organic garden, and so I was out working at that. So I'm a little bit tired, got up really early.
Dude, it's 8 o'clock in the morning.
No, I got up a lot earlier than that.
No, I said it's 8 o'clock now.
Oh, well, that's right, midday.
Anyways, thank you for taking the time to come down here. I know you have a lot of gardening going on.
And,
I've known you now for what?
Well,
I've known you since you were 80, so I guess that's
5 years.
22 years ago?
22. I tell everybody I'm 105, but I'm actually 85.
Okay, well, I've known you for probably 12 years, 13 years?
Yeah, but I knew Claire before that, some of the founders, because I was on the Hill.
I am the founder, dang it.
Well, you're not the one that gave me that first little one that was like a nasal squeeze, have to take out the little dropper when you had the other building down there. I had visited your other building. Was it Blaine?
Yeah.
It was Blaine.
Yeah.
And so I have known Claire for a lot of years.
What we want to do is start out and have you give a little bit of history, of your history. You know, I know you had a roofing company and a couple of other things, and, but you fell off the roof and...
One time, but I lit on my feet like a cat.
Oh, then what happened?
Something else hit me in the head.
Oh, okay. But give us a little bit about your history and how...
Well, I was raised in Centerville, Utah. We had a huge organic garden. We had cows. I drank raw milk all those years. And I had a person where I went to church that had a retail outlet for health food and a bakery. He had a saying, the whiter the bread, the sooner you're dead. I don't think they can do that now. And he's the one, after I was foolish enough to run for the legislature, and I'll tell you about that in a minute. I'm very conservative in my politics. I almost libertarian. I believe in individual responsibility. I believe we should take care of our body. I have battled when I finally was foolish enough to run for the legislature. For 8 years, I had little tiffs with the Medical Association on choice and freedom and health care. I also, after I left the legislature, I was elected in 76, served 6 years, was unseated by a teachers' union, came back for 2, and did a lot to help the industry. When I first went in the legislature, the attitude was those in the natural product industry were putting a bunch of weeds in capsules in their garage and selling them. I don't think
Isn't that really what the pharmaceutical industry does?
Just about. Just about. Anyway, through the years that I served there, I did everything I could to help build the industry. I used to take tours to some of the bigger companies, et cetera. I was also very close to Senator Hatch, Orrin Hatch, who did the dietary supplement health education. I had worked with the owners of Good Earth. I think they have about 6 stores, 2 here in this area. And we had worked on a lot of very positive issues. We'd worked on legislation that helped protected the industry. And when I left the legislature in about 86, 88, I started lobbying for the industry, Probably my main client was Nutraceutical, which is a holding company. They were in Park City at that time. But a few other companies, I don't know that I ever acted as a lobbyist for Clear, but Murdoch, Ken Murdoch was one, and Rich was one, a few others, but I did some work, kind of looked after.
You should probably point out that Ken Murdoch was the founder of Nature's Way.
That is correct, and I'll talk about him when we...
Who was the other guy, Rich?
I don't know who I'm talking about now. But during those years, well, when I left the legislature, Ray Howard, who was Good Earth, and I had been working together. We did a naturopathic physician licensure bill that we pushed through, which really opened things up for natural products here in the state of Utah. Well, during that tenure, we were having a lot of trouble with FDA. And of course, you never have any problem with governmental relations, do you?
I love us. I love our great and glorious, very amazing, wonderful government. They always have the best interest of the people at the forefront of their actions.
We were close enough to Orrin Hatch. I remember the day. Ray and I met him in Salt Lake in his office. He was in town, and asked him if he would file the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act, which, of course, was a massive bill and going to take a lot of effort. And he said he would, and he happened to have his assistant, Trish Knight, I believe was her last name, happened to be in town, had her come in, we talked about it. From there, I drew on my experience as a legislator. I found that form letters were not as effective. They have some effect. And I found that petitions have some effect, but anybody will sign a petition. I bet I could even get you to sign one. Ray and I sat down and developed a strategy that had never been tried on a national level. And it had four, of course they can't see, four legs to the stool. The manufacturers, of course, were key, one of the legs. The retailers were very, very key, and the customers of the retailers, and of course then Congress. What Ray and I came up with, and Ken Murdoch eventually put up the money and used his list to start it, we came up with a letter writing campaign that we had 3 or 4 different outlines, not form letters, outlines on the wall above a card table or a table in each of the retail stores. And we had 4 different colors of stationery and the list locally of who their legislators were. And then in each store, they would sit down and help them write out in hand their letter to their senator, 2 senators and their representative. And then they would mail it for them. We were told later that was the most intense lobby time. Ken Murdoch, I think, put up 50,000 back then, which would be like 150 now. And his list, and then we had other companies. We were told that was the most lobbied since the Vietnam War. I was talking to somebody a month or 2 ago that worked for Hatch, and he says, we used to use these truck boxes of mail into committee meetings. And that had a lot of effect. And I think that's the way I would do any kind of a lobby on Congress now. And we did the same thing. We had our own equivalent to FDA or licensing here in Utah, going after a lot of our companies saying, oh, you're practicing medicine in these stores. And we pushed through a bill, and Dave Robinson was the head of DOPL at that time, and he was hard to deal with. He wouldn't work with us.
What is DOPL? Department of Professional Licensing?
Yeah.
Okay.
And he wouldn't deal with us, so we did on a mini level in each of the stores and had them write, and well, we mainly had them call and talk on the phone to their local legislator. And a bill that he had that we were trying to amend, he couldn't get out. They stopped it in the Senate. They wouldn't pass it. And he begged us to help him make the amendment, but he had to wait till the next year, and he dealt with it. He gained some respect for the industry and the people in the industry, and that was important. That was a trial run. But yeah, the Dietary Supplement Health Education Act. I didn't actually go out in the field. but I advised a lot of people, and I think you were going to ask me about my lobbying, about lobbyists. I have respect for some lobbyists. Others will take any client that comes along. The years that I lobbied, I would not hire on as a client if I didn't agree with what they're doing. That was the approach. And that's why I'll volunteer time now, because I don't need to be paid for something that's good. Waxman out of California during the dietary supplement health education was one of our big block. He was chairman of the committee that would come through. He was difficult to deal with. And so we organized a group of natural product owner stores to go meet with him. They were constituents. And they wanted me to come down. Now, I could have made a good piece of change.
Well, was Waxman supporting you or blocking you?
He's blocking us. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
What was the purpose of that?
Oh, he didn't agree with the dietary supplement health education. I think he was more pharmaceutical.
It's crazy that people think that it's one or the other.
Well, they wanted me to come down, and I says, if I come down, I'm going to be just a lobbyist. And this is where I think lobbying really pays off as constituents. I said, if you go in as constituents and you will pre-organize, have a good spokesman that's part of your constituent group, not a lobbyist, and present it to him, I think you'll get further. And I said, and I'll coach you. I won't come down, but I'll coach you. And that worked well. We had Waxman flip on FDA and so on finally, because it would have cost him an election if he was afraid of it.
Well, there's a lot that's happened since the 1980s when you were doing that.
30 years
and
ago.
And today.
I hate to think of it. It means I'm getting old.
I don't think getting is the word.
Gotten. I think you're right, Nate. Some days I feel 105. But I have a standard joke. I say, some days I feel 80, some days I feel 18. The days I feel 18 is when I make the biggest fool of myself.
Yeah. I can see that. But
from personal experience or from mine?
No, because just I don't have to have personal experience. I learn from other people's experiences.
I try.
So, looking back over the last 30 years since the Dietary Health and Supplement, the whatever that is, Health Education Act, how much has changed?
Well, I think with the passage of Orrin, and Orrin began to take more money from pharmaceuticals. There were some of those years at the last that he was a little more neutral, but we could usually get him to talk to FDA. And I've actually met with FDA people when Levitt was back there, former Governor Levitt. We had a meeting, and of course we turned it over to one of the national lobbyists whom I don't like working with, but I think they exercise as much authority as they can get away with, and some that they don't really have.
Well, I know they like to exercise a lot of authority they don't have because that's what we're dealing with, and that's why, I think that agencies, this is my opinion, but I think that agencies like the FTC that over-exercised their authority over the last 5 years have actually killed hundreds of thousands of Americans and bankrupted our country further than what it already had to be.
I think you're right. I am critical of what happened during COVID.
Why? Public health did such a whiz-bang job.
Oh, yeah. But we were told if you got the shots, you wouldn't get COVID. I don't know a person that got the shots that hasn't had COVID.
Did you get the shot? No, I'm kidding.
I did.
That's HIPAA. Protected by HIPAA. Don't tell me.
I did the early two. Wished I had not have it. Never would have it if I had it. My son.
Did your doctor lie to you?
Either that or he had been lied to, one of the two.
We'll go with he was lied to. But he should have done his own research. Isn't that
Yeah,
what we pay the doctors the
agree.
big bucks for?
His father had been my doctor for years, and he knew that I was into natural, so he would research it and work with me. This younger son of his that's now taking his practice is good, and it's taking me a while to teach him.
So what else do we need to do moving forward to keep
Well,
I guess I probably should ask you the question. What is your position? I mean, you've said a little bit, but what is your position on natural and pharmaceutical? I mean, is one completely right and the other was completely wrong, or is there a place for them to work together?
Well,
should they be playing together in the sandbox?
Oh, you're going to get a pet peeve of mine. I think the pharmaceuticals, I don't know how to tackle it, overreach. I think there are times you just don't need to take a pharmaceutical.
Well, I don't think anybody says that that's wrong. I don't think anybody disagrees with it. I mean, I think even the pharmaceutical industry would agree with that.
I'm not so sure they would.
I mean, even they came out at some point and said, hey, you know what? Using opioids, when you get a paper cut, it's a little overboard.
Yeah, but when they first came out with the opioids, they said they're not habit forming. I have someone I'm very close to that doctor for 1 year gave her opioids and said they weren't habit forming. She struggles to this day.
Well, my brother died earlier this year because of
Opioids.
that same thing.
Well, and what had happened, it was the incompetency of the doctor. She kept saying, I'm having kidney problems, I'm having kidney problems. He says, oh, you're just getting kidney infections. They finally, when she changed doctor, went in and took a cyst off of her ureter coming out of it about that big. Took them 6 hours to piece at a time to take it off. And by that time, she'd been on opiates for a year. And she struggles to this day. I think preventative medicine is the best way to go. I think we should take care of ourselves. I think we should exercise regularly. I think we should eat properly.
So Lipitor.
Lipitor. And I had a minor TIA about 15 years ago. They wanted to give me Lipitor, and I said, I'm not taking the junk. I take L-arginine, which increases circulation. I change my diet. I'm very careful that way, and so I don't need it. I wouldn't take it.
No, that's so you're getting to where I think your sympathies lie, I guess.
My
your
sympathy
loyalties,
lies in take care of yourself.
is that you when the doctor told you needed to take Lipitor for your cholesterol,
Wasn't my
you
regular
said-
doctor.
you said rather than me going in and taking a drug that has all kinds of chemicals and unproven side effects and you know all these other issues, why don't I just go out and find something that's in nature that does the same thing? And we've been using natural, quote unquote, natural medicine and food for thousands of years and managed to live quite healthily. Healthfully? Is that a word?
Healthfully.
And not having that many issues with it. We come in now, and you know, modern pharmaceuticals really started about 100 years ago, and our health has just kind of gone off a cliff. Now we're using more drugs, and we're fatter and more sick than we've ever been before. So the argument that pharmaceuticals are better for us is a lie. It's a straight up lie.
Absolutely.
And I think you agree with that.
Oh, I agree.
But the question
Of course, the solution to everything, you're going to get a wisecrack out of me. You need to be eating about 200 pounds of sugar a year.
I only get 180.
We both know what that does.
We do.
I think
sugar is horrible.
Well, I think that's why we have an increase of diabetes. People are eating too much sugar. Now, I have to admit, I had sugar this morning. I had a couple of dates.
What were their names? Does your wife know about this?
Yeah, she was right there.
Okay. I mean, this is Utah.
Yeah, no way.
You can
I mean,
edit
there's certain apples. I like apples. We've got peach trees coming on now. I'll eat peaches. I'll eat nectarines. I've been eating squash like crazy. I have a lot of squash. I like garlic. Can't you tell?
Yeah, I can. I wasn't going to say anything.
I think, well, now you go back to garlic. What was the use of garlic for hundreds of years?
To fight off vampires.
It's a natural antibiotic. World War I, before they had antibiotics, if they had a wound, they'd pound up garlic and put on it. Garlic has a lot of benefits. Can't think of them all right off the top of my head. You know, you got me on the spot. And if you...
So my other question is Is there a place in the sandbox for the pharmaceutical industry?
I would think a very, very severe infection would be about the time I would take an antibiotic.
Okay.
And that would be...
When was the last time you took an antibiotic? Actually, I can't ask that. Sorry, HIPAA. Sorry.
Do you want, or I'll sign the release. I think the last time I took a heavy dose of antibiotics was when I got a kidney infection. Really, really bad one.
So you're not adverse to pharmaceuticals. You're just
right
adverse
use?
to the abuse.
Oh, I think they're abused terribly.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had doctors take tests on me and write out a pharmaceutical prescription that I just don't fill.
So how do we change it to where? How can we change the system so that physicians are learning more about natural medicines as opposed to simply the Flexner report and the AMA and the systemic of the modern system we have of allopathic medicine, where it's, you come in with something and you walk out with a drug. How do we change that?
Well, first, you look for a physician that is open to both sides. You just don't go grab any physician, and if he's pro-drug all the time.
And, so what other things can we do to help change what's happening in our healthcare system today?
Well, self-education. That thought comes to me. I've taken magazines through the years that have a lot of really good natural product information in. You probably would not want me to talk about it. Life Extension was one I've taken for 40 years. And there are articles in there, and they're well documented. I've given them to a few doctors I know. And they say, oh, these are credible sources that will talk about everything from beta-carotene to natural bioidentical hormone to vitamin C. Everybody knows about vitamin C. D, D3, different supplements. And to keep my blood pressure down, and it gets up really quick when I watch the TV and politics, I take L-arginine. I do have some blood pressure med if it gets out of hand, but no, self-education. Get some good, credible magazines on natural healing, natural products. I have a herbal library about like this.
So you're encouraging people to do their own research.
Start there.
You're encouraging people, we were told that all of that was misinformation, malinformation, and I can't remember all the other information words. We were simply supposed to do what the Fauci science guy said.
Don't get me started on Fauci.
Oh, go started. You're started.
No.
He's a doctor of America.
Oh, yeah, he's a witch doctor, in my opinion. Now I'm going to get sued.
Yeah.
No, I think he gave bad advice.
Well, I think he's been giving bad advice his whole career.
And I think he made money off of it.
Oh, absolutely.
My personal opinion.
We don't need to go off on that topic, but I don't understand why someone in his position who has all the money he's ever going to spend, what goes through their head. So I don't know that.
You don't want me to say it?
I say it because I don't understand it. I mean, I can't imagine that someone what is he? He's 80 years old. He's your age.
Yeah, he's an old bugger.
But, when you're that old, to sit there and say, well, I'm going to make another $1 million a year, what are you going to go spend it on? I mean, what's the point of making money? I mean, does he think he's going to live forever? I mean,
he does.
He's got all the mRNA stuff. I guess he maybe could.
I believe that to make money, I'm going to put it that way, there are those that will conspire together on top levels to figure out programs to make money. I get so angry when I watch TV ads on pharmaceuticals, knowing a lot of it is nonsense.
Yeah. I just quit watching TV.
Oh, I watch politics. All those years I spent in politics, I like to stay on top. Makes me angry.
So you're telling me that 50 years ago you were in politics for a couple of years?
No, I was in politics 35 years ago for But at 18, you couldn't vote till you're 21 when I was a kid. They changed it to 18. I got involved. Religious influence made me very conservative. A man named David O. McKay kind of set the stage for what I started to believe. And I decided, well, why complain? If you don't try to do something about it in life, whether it be health care, whether it be politics, why complain if you're not willing to do something? So I started at 18. I sent for the national Republican and Democrat platforms, and the state platforms, and the county platforms. I read through them, and I decided the closest I was probably at that time the Davis County in policy, and it was the Davis County Republican. So I got involved. I went to the party caucuses, couldn't vote until I was 21, and then I became delegate, became other things. And then I made the mistake coming out of church one day. A woman asked me how old she was. It's a dangerous question. I looked at her and I says, I don't know whether to make you younger because of your beauty or older because of your wisdom. She says, you ought to be in politics. So then I ran for the legislature. And I won. Wow. I out-strategized the one that ran against me. And won, was there for 3 terms, unseated, back for 1 more term. And pushed for a lot of really good things. Tried to slow some of the agencies down. Battled periodically with the Utah Medical Association. Tried to be nice, but we would lock horns once in a while.
Well, that's good. We should all have somewhere where we can lock horns and tussle every now and then. Okay, so what other big issues do you think, or are you working on that you would like to solve, that you would like to help solve, in the next 20 years?
I'll continue to help anybody in the natural product industry. I like sharing the thing we did when we did Dietary Supplement Health Education Act, sharing that expertise, sharing the experiences I've had and what seems to work and what does not seem to work. I haven't lobbied professionally since I was 75.
So we're, the way that I, got you to come in here and talk some of these is we're actually starting, based on some of what you did in the past, we're going to start working on doing some lobbying with the government right now, because the federal government right now is over-regulating supplements to the point that it's fairly obvious that they're over-regulating with the intent to shut down the industry.
No, I think you're right.
And so we're going back to lobby, and we're going to start lobbying some of the members of Congress to push back on the FTC and a little bit on the FDA, but mostly on the FTC, because the FTC is the one that is coming after our industry harder right now. I think we've discussed this in another podcast, but they're suing us because we made statements that were based on science during COVID about nasal hygiene. I mean, who would have thought that washing your nose for an upper respiratory issue would have any effect? And, we're going to do some of what you did back in the 80s, and we're going to try to get some of the retailers, some of the people involved to help get some of these letters sent into people in Congress.
I think your secret is the retailer and the retail customer.
Yeah, and we're going to go
out
there too.
I'm willing to volunteer time. I'm not willing to spend a lot of money and fly out of the state.
Oh, well,
I know somebody's got an airplane.
We are
we
just going
state, he can take.
We're just asking you if you will go around and sit in all this, spend one day in each of the stores in Utah, and help with that.
I don't even drive that far anymore.
Well, I'll have someone. We'll get someone to drive you. I mean, my daughter. She has a Tonka truck that she'll drive you around. It's a little electric car. She doesn't even fit in it anymore. But no, that's one of the things that we're going to do.
Yeah, I'm willing to help share experiences, expertise. Like I say, this mine's not as sharp as it used to be.
That's setting the bar pretty low, isn't it?
It is. If I didn't love this guy, I wouldn't sit here with him.
Okay. So what are the big issues? I mean, are you going to help us push back against the great and glorious and amazingly wonderful government that we have and the overreach that?
Absolutely.
I mean, do you feel like there's overreach there?
I think there's a definite overreach. Now, here's an interesting thing, and this, you draw the conclusion. Worked with Hatch for years. Worked with one of his administrative staff. Nice guy. When he retired, where did he go to work?
Probably the farm industry. It's where everybody goes.
Actually, that's what he did. And I thought, what?
Yeah.
Here we've been fighting it, and now you go to work for it. It's like going to work for the devil.
Well, we see that happening even in the natural products industry.
More
you know,
money.
the guy that's heading up the MPA right now used to work for the pharmaceutical industry. The lawyer that worked at the FTC that drafted this legislation that is killing, or it's not legislation, that drafted their guidance where they're claiming now that if you don't have 2 RCT studies that they like to back up each of your claims, then you're lying, which that's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, you know, there's all kinds of statements that are made in the media and in the scientific journals that are outright lies, but they're backed up with 2 RCT studies. I mean, you can do that, and they've even admitted that. So it just makes no sense. But the lawyer that actually drafted that admitted that on camera and said that. But he's actually the one who now is one of the lawyers helping to teach the people in the natural products industry how to comply with what he did. And it's not a question of how do you push back. It's how do you comply with this broad overreach. And those are organizations within our own industry.
Well, I was delighted when we got the Chevron case come down. It doesn't solve all the problem, but I think it's heading in the right direction. The definition that I've heard of a tyranny is all 3 branches of government in the same agency: executive, legislative, and judicial.
Most of these 3-letter agencies have all of that in there.
And this country slipped in that direction. Really,
it's not slipped. It's sliding, careening
in that direction.
Careening in that direction.
And the one thing I like about the Civil Rights Act, if a state agency abuses the power, I can sue them under civil rights. I can't sue the federal government. I mean, I had a city here in 40 years ago set up on a civil rights case, and they backed away. It was Layton City. That's a long story. It has nothing to do with our industry, but they were abusing the due process really, really bad.
Well, I think our federal government abuses that.
I
the
think
DOJ
they do too.
abuses that.
I think I've told you before, any legislation you do nationally, I would open the door for a lawsuit against the agency for civil rights. Now, that's going to be a hard one because Congress is a bunch of weak sissies.
Don't disagree with that.
They want to give it all to them. They don't want the
Why
responsibility.
don't you run for Congress?
Oh, I'm too old. I would.
Why don't you?
I had somebody once try to talk me into running for governor.
You're more coherent than the president.
Oh, that's not saying much. I'm not always. I don't feel as coherent as I used to be. I don't know, Nate. We're headed in the wrong direction.
Let's be more positive here,
No,
Grandpa.
Well, yeah, we have been headed in the wrong direction. Now you're headed in the right direction. Now, how's that?
I don't know, because I don't think we've turned the corner on a.
That was a political answer.
I don't think we've turned the corner on this downslide that we have in our country.
I don't think we have either, but you're trying, and you're starting in that direction. I'll tell you, every one of the natural product industry events that they have around the country, I'd be pushing like crazy. That's what we did, dietary supplement. But I have a suggestion. This comes from a terrible personal experience.
I don't know if we should call it quits and wrap this up before he gives a suggestion, or whether we should keep on going.
I went to one in Anaheim.
Expo West?
Yeah, this is 30 years ago. And I sampled every product.
Yeah, we can I already know where this is going.
Thank goodness for Imodium D. So that's a suggestion.
So what you're saying is
I took a pharmaceutical.
you take pharmaceuticals to counteract all of the natural products.
I wanted to be able to fly home.
Socks.
I know. I learned something.
What?
Stay at home if you're going to eat. Something gives you the.
You know what? I have been to that Expo West many times. As a company, it was a great experience, and we went there as starting out. So the Expo West, I'll just for people that don't know, it's a natural products expo, and it happens in Anaheim, California, every year in March. I want to say the second week in March, right around there. And when I started Clear, somebody called me and said, "Oh, you should be down here." And I was like, "Oh, well, what is it?" And I looked it up, and I'm like, "Okay, yeah, it sounds good." But it was only like 10 days away. Mm-hmm. So I loaded up a booth. I loaded up everything in the back seat of my car, and we rented a booth, and I drove down there and set everything up. And this is my first time to Expo West. And it was me by myself. No one else worked for the company. And I set the booth up, going over and parked the car, went home, went to sleep. The next morning I go down there, and it was nonstop, all day long. And I ended, they start at 10 a.m. and they go to 6 or something. And then after that, they have all these activities. But I was there by myself, so I was exhausted because everybody that comes by. And so I went back to the hotel and I went to sleep. I woke up the next day and did the same thing again. Mm-hmm. And the third day, it was the same thing. It was Sunday. They don't do it on Sunday. They do it on Saturday now. I think they moved it. But I think they used to do it on Sunday. And on Sunday, I woke up and my head was hurting. My head was hurting on Saturday. But I woke up, my head was hurting, and I went into the booth, and I'm sitting there, and everybody comes by, and everybody has a solution. They're like, "Oh, this is what it is. This is here." They're trying to adjust me. They're trying, "Oh, you need to go over here and get this. Oh, I'm going to bring this to you." So everybody was incredibly nice. And
I see where you're
I
going.
left that show when it got over and loaded everything back up in my car. And as I'm driving to the freeway, because I couldn't afford the hotels in Anaheim, so I was going to drive back to Vegas where they had cheap hotels. And so as I'm pulling on the freeway, I'm like, "Oh, I'm hungry. Let me go get So I pulled into a Burger King. Here's a plug for Burger King. I pull into Burger King, and I got a hamburger and some fries and a Coke. And, less than 5 minutes later, everything was gone. Like, my headache was gone, and I realized that I hadn't had a thing to eat or drink in 3 days. Because I was so tired.
I have hypoglycemia. If I don't nibble a little bit.
Well, that was many years ago, but that was, the only thing that people that I'd eaten or drinking was what people were bringing me over and saying, "Here, take this for this issue, take this for that." And that was the only thing that I'd had for 3 days.
Oh,
but
I'd be.
We don't actually go to Expo West. Maybe we should go back to it. But it has become so big that it really is. It's too big. And you go down there, and it's really just a show, and it just goes crazy. Because there's so many people coming in from all over the world going to that show.
Now, I'll tell you an experience. You may want to erase this. Allegedly, I'm going to say it this way. Ken Murdoch, and then we're bringing in an oil. What is the one that's out of the yellow flower?
Sunflower seed?
No.
Canola?
No, it's not an
mustard oil?
No, it's a more of a
saffron.
Pharmaceutical. No, it wasn't saffron. I can't even think of it. My blood sugar is getting low. But they were just
saying. Call an
saying.
ambulance?
No, but it was not paying the tariff on it. They were saying it was just regular oil. And it was worth about 5 or 10 times what they were doing. FDA got on their case.
What does the FDA have to do with tariffs?
They work with each other, I think. I think FDA or somebody got on their case. Anyway, they got our department, our ag department, to embargo it. Then they had me go down with them and talk to them, and I railed on those guys. I didn't know what had happened. I didn't know they were cheating on the tariff, allegedly cheating on the tariff. I railed on them. I'd sue you guys, but and their attorney and Ken was like this.
Allegedly, they were like that.
Allegedly.
I know Ken, and I don't ever think he went like this.
I don't think he did. Well, they were not saying a word. I found out later what they had been doing. I think it cost their attorney his license.
Well, so what you're trying to point out is sometimes companies in our industry, in the natural products industry,
well, I'm
do
actually
things that
trying
are
to
wrong.
point out that the state didn't have the authority to do that. They could, had it been a legitimate thing they were doing, they could have sued the state of Utah, but they couldn't have sued the federal government. They were acting for the federal government, embargoing it, but they didn't have the statutory authority. And
the government doesn't need statutory authority. They do whatever they want.
I know.
We got to wrap this up pretty soon because you got to go eat some cashews.
I have to. Oh no! Haven't you got some chocolates out there with sugar in them?
No, we don't eat chocolate.
Don't you?
No.
They're a little dark.
Oh, there's so many things I could say right there.
I know. Lead.
Allegedly.
Allegedly, they say some of the darker chocolates have lead in it.
Oh, well, then don't eat them.
The ground that they're growing.
Because, lead affects your brain as it's developing, and at your age, it's still probably developing.
Well, I don't have any effect on my brain, but who are you?
Yeah. Anyways, we got to get Lloyd. We want to thank you for being here today, and we got to get him back to the treatment center for...
Mentally.
Kidding, I'm kidding. We got to get you out to where you can have something to eat. But anyways, we want to thank you for coming in and telling us about your interesting life.
Rambling on.
Pretty much.
I just rambled a lot.
That's what we all do. But you know what? Listening to people ramble, I have learned, is many times one of the best ways to learn many words of wisdom. You know, you listen to podcasters that just ramble on and talk and go. And I think you learn more in 30 minutes listening to them than you do listening to the media, where they come in and for 30 minutes they cram stuff in there. But you're missing the essence of what it is. And so, coming in and having you ramble, as you're saying, is really learning about the history of the Health Dietary and Supplement and Health Education Act and how, the pharmaceutical industry is kind of screwing America and the world.
Oh, I think they are.
So
again, I come back to people need to educate themselves.
Well, those are words of wisdom to live by. Go learn about what it is. Go learn what when your doctor tells you something. Make sure that you don't blindly follow it, but go read up on it. Maybe get 2 or 3 opinions on it. But find a doctor that understands natural medicine and one that understands pharmaceuticals. And that's hard because most of the medical schools, I live here in Utah, and I just heard that the BYU University is going to put a medical school in, which I think is so short-sighted. I can't even understand why they're doing that.
I don't know. I heard that, but I don't know what they're reasoning.
I don't understand it because I think that right now there's so much change going on in medicine that to put a medical school out there right now is putting an investment of hundreds of millions of dollars, and there's no clear path to the benefit of that.
No,
So,
well, I don't know. I'll have
but
to.
We're not here to discuss universities and politics.
Politics?
Yeah,
that's we've got to.
We're here to discuss public health and how that matters and how politics plays in public health. But we got to get you back, and I got to go take my daughters out to their party.
And he didn't invite me to go water skiing, my favorite sport.
Well, I did invite you, actually.
You did after I pushed you a little bit.
Yeah. But I would like to thank Paul, Lloyd. I would like to thank Lloyd for taking the time to drive down here and put off the weeding in the garden for an extra couple hours to come down and chat with us. I think there's a wealth of knowledge in that head if he can figure out how to access it.
That's the problem. Well, there's one thing about getting older. I get to relearn new things every day.
Hey, that works. Did you learn how to make pancakes? I'm kidding.
Whole wheat. I'll tell you a secret. When you make whole wheat pancakes, get a good apple and grate it and put it in your batter, in your batter,
And you just
and it'll make them more. They won't be dry. They'll be more moist. They'll be better.
I just add eggs and it does the same thing.
Oh no, eggs are there, but you got to grate up an apple.
Because I grew up on whole wheat pancakes. In fact, the pancakes I grew up on, I had to grind the flour.
Well,
My mom and dad would buy U.S. government surplus wheat in these big barrels, and we had to actually grind it to make the flour, and then we would make the pancakes.
We still do, but we don't do it by hand.
Oh, yeah.
It's a stone mill, very fine flour.
Well, there you go.
And my wife, all of the grandkids love her pancakes. But the secret is she peels an apple and then puts that in. Yeah, try it.
I'll try it.
Try it and see what you think.
Anybody else want to try that? And, next time make some whole wheat pancakes and grind up an apple, mush up an apple, shred an apple,
Shred an apple.
chew it up and spit it back in the batter. I don't know. But anyways, we do want to thank you for coming down.
My privilege. Thank you.
And that's another, we'll wrap up this episode. It went a lot longer than I thought it would.
Well,
I
you
thought
can,
you'd be
you
dead
can
after
edit
5
it.
minutes in the water.
Oh, I can ramble on all day. That might not make much sense, but I can.
We're all good.
This episode of Clear the Air was hosted by Nathan Jones, with our special guest Lloyd Selleniet. Produced by David Monk, and associate producer Matthew Davis. Video and audio were edited by Caleb Scoresby. Research by Sabre Bills. Graphics by Joseph Thornton. Music by Augusto Diniz. Have a favorite episode? Share it with a friend. New episodes of Clear the Air are published weekly on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time.
I could tell things about Nate that I won't tell.
You guys
Oh,
are
no,
already
maybe
turned off the cameras, haven't you? I already said it's over, so yeah, we're good.
No. And I'm not going to explain it, but I've been going to send you a birthday present.
You don't even know when my birthday is.
Doesn't matter. I was just going to send you a pair of socks.
Oh, well. As long as it's not my birthday present is not a picture of you in your birthday suit, I'm fine
Oh,
with it.
no way. No way.
Size matters.